I'm up here in the upper right-hand corner. If you can't see me, then we've got an error. But hopefully you're seeing this. I'm seeing it, so it should be recording all right. Okay, so for today, we are going to do a little preview and review, which we're going to take care of right now. This shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. In fact, it may take a little bit less than 10 minutes. So today we want to review logos, pathos, and ethos, or ethos, and explore how those appeals are working in the discussion forum questions, and also talk about their larger role as part of the rhetorical situation. So we're going to do that. After that's over, I will upload this video lecture here so that you can see all the things that we're talking about. That's going to take a little bit longer, probably about 40 minutes, because I want to cover the primary assignment for the first part of our course, the ad analysis. I want to quickly walk you through a student sample of an ad analysis so you can see how an effective ad analysis evolves from a primary attempt to a finalized edition of said activity. And then I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a video analysis where we take a look at the famous YouTuber Everything Wrong With, and then of course he's going to attack our film text, the film version of our text for this semester, The Princess Bride, in a little ditty called Everything Wrong with the Princess Bride. I do issue a trigger warning here. There's some humor in this video that may not be to everyone's taste. There's some adult language and some odd themes that I've actually never heard this particular YouTuber use before, but I don't know. Perhaps that's just the nature of how YouTubers and other presenters evolve over time. But that's not the objective. I'd ask you to try to just, desensitize yourself to a couple of those crude jokes, to focus on the types of appeals he uses in order to get his point across. And then for next time, meaning for us next Tuesday, try to read the 4 pillars of argument in practical argument. That is our, of course, main text. I'm going to flash that up here on the screen again. Okay, that is practical argument. If you haven't gotten a copy of that yet, you may want to try to do so sooner as opposed to later. The Kishwaukee College bookstore is open, and you may want to make sure that you have that text in hand. Okay. So let's start with our review. This should take only about 10 minutes. So last time when I had you complete the discussion questions, I had you focus on a couple of different issues or questions related to logos, pathos, and ethos. And I asked essentially, what does it mean according to the text to be persuasive? And what are the 3 types of appeals that you can use to persuade an audience? And please try to give an example of each one. Now, you've all done very well with this, and I'm so happy to see the amount of responses that I've gotten, as well as the quality of depth in those responses. So let's go ahead and start quickly analyzing this. Now, the text points out a couple of specific things, and they begin by explaining how arguments function in our everyday world. Specifically, they explain that arguments can be defined as what they should be and what they are not. So an argument, in the sense that we are discussing arguments, are not angry quarrels. They're not spin that you might see on a lot of nightly TV news programs, and they're not propaganda. Okay, that's what they're not. Now, a lot of times you can see that arguments are pulled into this category. But that's not the type of argument that we're referencing in this instance. We're talking about a more formal academic argument that uses logic to appeal to a specific audience in order to provoke them to adopt some kind of action or change their perspective on a specific topic. And this is done by providing logical evidence for your audience so that they can feel good about perhaps changing an assumption or perspective, or at least considering alternative views on potential hot button topics. Now, all of that is part and parcel of a larger framework that I'm going to discuss with you called the rhetorical context. You've probably heard about the rhetorical context before, and you may have even seen an image similar to the ones that I'm going to share with you now. But I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on exactly what I was referring to. So in our first example here, on my screen is to the right. It may be inverted by the time we get to the video version. But you can see that the rhetorical situation is another word for the context in which a message is delivered. The figure of authority within a rhetorical situation must lie with the speaker, or at certain times the speaker's evidence, or how do you want to say this? Their source material. Okay. So the ethos lies primarily with the speaker. Now, the medium could be written text, as it will be for this course. It could be for a speech class, or even a video, as we're going to see later on in our session today. So whatever the medium is, it relies on, again, the speaker to be the voice of authority. He's going to try the pathetic appeal, pathos, to grab our attention. And he's going to do that with some sort of message based primarily in logic and perhaps in some form of authority, or, as I said, in some emotional sense. He's going to try to appeal, or she will try to appeal to our sensibilities. Now over here on the right-hand side, you have a more basic version of the same thing. The message is communicated by its author, whether that's a written medium or a oral medium, and they explain their purpose to the audience, and the audience invests belief in the author, and that message relies on those constituent points working together in tandem. So that's what's referred to as the rhetorical situation. Now, anytime you engage in a rhetorical analysis, as I will ask you to do in our ad analysis assignment, you're going to be faced with the question of how to make your argument as persuasive as you can. And that's sort of the whole focus of our first initial chapter. The art of persuasion relies on these three types of appeals that you've written about and that you've referred to over the course of this week's discussion forum. By the way, quick reminder, if you haven't yet gotten a chance to engage in the discussion forum, we're still waiting for you, and you still have until Friday to make that work. So go ahead, don't be shy, read some of the posts. There are some brilliant ideas and suggestions and examples being offered up by your fellow classmates, but that doesn't mean it's all inclusive by any means. So please feel free to contribute your own unique perspective to our ongoing conversation. I think you're going to get the most out of it if you're participating early and with a high degree of frequency. Okay. That's actually just about all I have to say for the introduction. Now, before I move on, let's consider what the first assignment will look like. I've called it a rhetorical analysis, which is what it is, but I've also called it an ad analysis. So anytime you analyze a piece of media, even a print or video stream ad, like in the examples that we're going to look at today, you are required rhetorically to work out the content of the message and how it applies to you as an audience member and what authority you're willing to give to your author. So let's go ahead and take a look at how one student adopted this assignment and went through the process of perfecting this idea. Okay, share screen. Let's see here. That's not exactly what I wanted, but it's close enough. Try that one more time. A little technical snafu there. There we are. This is what I was hoping to see. So for this assignment, the student had to look at a print example of an advertisement or some other form of video and analyze the visual content of the medium. Before this is due, luckily, we will have a chance to discuss the merits of visual argumentation before we jump into this assignment. So you're going to get a little bit of a preview as to what she focuses on in her example. So the advertisement in question is from an organization called Feed My Starving Children. And she starts off with a quotation, which is not a bad method to use with introductory material. And she says, according to Feeding America, 16 million American kids struggle with hunger each year. That's a nice statistic, but right away, there's no in-text citation to back that up. So she's going to have some work to do before the final draft is ready. With this very scary statistic, in America, we need people who are willing to take time out of their busy schedules to help the less fortunate. Feed My Starving Children, from here on out referred to as FMSC, is a Christian nonprofit organization that allows people to easily help those in need. The organization was established in 1987 with a goal of feeding God's starving. I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay. So, yeah. She says, she continues on. The FMSC is different than most organizations because it's based on the calling of Jesus to help those in need. They do not have their own distributing staff around the world, and they're volunteer-based. The reason I chose FMSC is to add to analyze is because I have been a volunteer at this organization multiple times in the past with my youth group. Now, she does a number of things well in this introduction. She starts off with a startling fact or statistic to grab our attention. She also explains a little bit of the background of the organization that's sponsoring the ad. So she gives us some relevant context, and then she explains her personal connection to the ad or to the organization. Now, you may note that typically for a rhetorical analysis, there is less of a tendency to embrace the first person narrative. I'm going to let you decide how comfortable you are with that. We won't have a whole lot of opportunity to have a personalized narrative for our formal written essays, and I would encourage you in general to perhaps steer away from that example. Still, there are a number of things that the student does well, and I think that this will become apparent when you read it yourselves. I'm not going to read the entire text of this document, but I think that you'll see how she approaches the context of what she's trying to explain in the analysis from a personal perspective. There's no reason you can't just modify that in order to get that perspective across without the use of the first person. She talks about remembering volunteering for the organization for the first time. And then she says, based on that experience, whenever she sees an ad, she feels a sense of joy or elation. And that's important, because if an ad is working, you should be able, at least, to comment in a short space about how it affects you as an audience. Because that was, we were saying at the top of the discussion, you have to invest some authority in the author of the context. And hopefully their ad, if it's working as such, should provide some sort of pathos or some sort of emotional reaction within you. If it doesn't, it's not going to be a very successful ad. She describes the ad saying, helping people help other people. And she says, this phrase stuck out to me because we live in a world where the bad is going on, is more focused than what we see of the good. The ad was located at an air pump station located at a local gas station. And she says, a portion of the money that was put into the machine was then donated to feed my starving children. And she says, when we look closer at the ad, we see two figures in the shape of people, and it seems as if one is handing the other food. The display is very simple and uses two main colors, blue and white. I think that making the ad simple in nature allows people to focus more on the meaning of it rather than what is making it up. And I said that is a pretty solid analysis of the visual elements of the design of this ad. But obviously, it would have been better for us as a readership if they'd actually showcased the visual. So that was one of the primary things that I suggested she add into the final example of the essay. Now, after we completed that initial answer, I had that student share her analysis with another student, and they completed this peer review sheet. And that student offered her fairly constructive feedback, and she did like the specific design elements that were described in the initial student's essay. By the way, all of these visuals that I'm popping up here will be made available to you on the Desire to Learn website, so you can look at them as frequently or as little as you desire. But they're there for you as a reference that you can study in greater detail. All right, so let's look at what she did as a final component of this assignment. I'm going to share one last time here for this example. And here you can see she has changed it a lot. Specifically right here, she added in an appropriate MLA style citation. Now, I'm not asking you for this first assignment to create an MLA style citation, but it does help to establish her authority as an author because she has come armed with statistics and information of a logical nature to help assert her position. Here's finally the image of the described ad itself, and she's applied a real easy wraparound text option in the body of the paper that doesn't distract from the nature of what she's trying to describe. And you can see that she incorporates a very good works cited page citation at the end of that essay. And as I say here, effectively combine your visual analysis of the ad together with the organization's goals to provide the audience with an effective sense of its mission. Okay. So that's an example from a student just like you who was in the same class with the same instructor, who approached this topic and was able to essentially, with a little bit of tweaking from the initial draft, knock this one out of the park. It was about 669, it was about 669 words, a little bit more than 2 full pages. It was actually 4 pages if you consider the works cited page. So what does that have to do with our class? Well, luckily, we are going to get a chance to do the very same thing. We're going to be able to create our own ad analysis in which we explore an ad and describe how effective or ineffective it is for us as an audience member. So here's the rubric for our first assignment. Here it is, Composition 2, the ad analysis. Now it says the ad analysis, but I just want to let you know the ad analysis is a type of rhetorical analysis. So when you see the drop box, the assignment drop box, it might say rhetorical analysis, but that's the same assignment. First of all, our draft. We've got 2 due dates. So we're going to get a chance to revise this first assignment, which means our draft will be due in September, around September 18th. Basically a month from today, or a month from the time you're watching this. We'll then take in a revision if you wish to revise, or if you need to revise, around the 2nd of October. So this will be our first major assignment. 25 points, 600 words with a standard MLA format, which means you use the size 12 font with a Times New Roman theme. The body of the paper should be double spaced throughout. And then in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to ask you to create a 4-line single-space list with your name, the name of the class, Composition 2 would be fine, the name of the assignment, ad analysis would be fine, and the day it's turned in. So hopefully the 18th of September or earlier, if the case may be. Beyond that, I would like you to create a unique title that's neither bolded or italicized, that provides an interesting, distinctive topic for the paper. Then include some page numbers for that assignment in the upper right-hand side of the paper. In the next couple of days, please reach out to me if you would like a special video uploaded that has me walking you through the steps on how to format an MLA style paper. A lot of word processing today just asks you to select the format of the paper and it'll format it for you in advance. So that may be too old hat or too much of a waste of time. Besides, if you've gone through English 103, you should be fairly familiar with how to do this by now. But what are we actually asking you to do? The analysis is a writing assignment that asks you to critically review print or other media advertisement in order to examine its rhetorical elements. So it could be a video or even a film trailer. One of the options that I've uploaded for this assignment is a link to the Princess Bride's original poster and its original trailer. So you can get a chance to look at those 2 things and decide if whether or not you want to use that as the basis for your assignment. During the course of this class, you'll compose an essay that describes the ad in question. And your essay should also explain your understanding of the organization behind the ad and its message, or its purpose and implications. It should also make an effort to explain what you perceive to be the intended audience and context for that advertisement. Once you've identified these elements, you'll then comment on the visual content related to the ad and describe whether or not you feel it's an effectively designed advertisement. The content organization of the essay really depends on the individual advertisement you select and the elements you focus on to clarify and support your interpretation of the argument. But it should include a few specific things. Obviously, it should be divided up into multiple paragraphs, including a distinct body, an introduction, and a conclusion. And that body should be composed of several distinct paragraphs itself. You should make sure that you pause long enough at the beginning to describe the ad in a very general way before you start to focus on its specific elements. You also may wish to develop an analysis for the ad that explores the message, the context, and the audience. In other words, that identifies the three aspects of the rhetorical situation. That would be key. And finally, just appraise or evaluate the content of the ad in question and whether or not you find it to be compelling. Again, all of that information is available for you on Desire to Learn, and you can look at this at your own pace and in your own time. Okay. That leaves us with our video, Everything Wrong with the Princess Bride. So this is where I'm going to sort of pump the brakes. You have a link right here to the ad. And again, this is just something I want you to think about and consider in preparation for next week. We may even incorporate some discussion of how effective the various appeals of this video author are for the purposes of his video and whether or not he gets his point across. He's going to use humor or a lot of pathos, but there's also some logos and authorities sprinkled throughout there. So I want you to watch that video. It's about 16 minutes. And then that should constitute a pretty close approximation for what we're responsible for and keep the state of Illinois happy, making sure that I provide enough content for you each week. As always, if something should occur where you have a question or concern, or you just want some clarification, you can always email me or request a Zoom meeting like this one, except it'll just be you and I, a meeting and conferencing so that I can better answer your question. I know there's really no reason that you need to do anything other than simply email me, but some students learn better when they can communicate orally or verbally. There are different ways of learning, as Howard Gardner expressed in his seminal 1983 essay on the types of learning. So if you feel like you just would have a better understanding if you were able to video chat or video conference with me, send me an email and I'll try to accommodate your schedule so that we can do that very thing. Also, take this into consideration. We're an asynchronous class, which means you never have to be on at a specific time. However, if you would like to request a Zoom session, I will probably set those up on either Tuesday or Thursday in keeping with the original schedule of this course. So I'd be happy to do that. Okay, that's it for Mr. Fowler. Thanks so much for your thoughts and your times and your attention this week, and we'll pick it up on Tuesday. Until then, take care, everyone.